Good evening, everybody. My name is Anto. Welcome to another stream. I am just going to double check that my audio is coming through, and it is, and we are good to go. Welcome, everybody, to another stream. This evening, we're going to be doing some monster design stuff, but like fundamental framework design stuff. The new monster manual comes out in just a couple of weeks, and I know that there is no monster building advice in it, and I know that the monster building advice that's in the Dungeon Master's Guide is really lacking. So in anticipation of wanting to build monsters for revised 5th edition, I want to go through and try and make a framework somewhat similar to what existed for 2014 D&D, and like spreadsheet out and try and figure out kind of what a typical monster looks like at each of the CRs and kind of reverse engineer the math essentially. And that is the plan for this evening. We're going to break down some of the monsters that they've already shown off. There's a bunch of monsters that have been published for a short adventure that Wizards released for free. I think it was free. And there's also been a bunch of monsters that have been teased out to the press through various articles. So I'm going to take all them, run them through a spreadsheet, crunch a bunch of numbers, and see whether anything jumps out from doing that as kind of a pattern of here's how we can start building some 5th edition, revised 5th edition monsters. So that is the broad plan. As always, get involved in the chat. These things are always much more fun when you are posting in the chat and getting involved. I am going to be making sure that I have everything set up. I'm going to press the buttons. Cool. Yeah, it does work. So I've already done a little bit of prep work for this. You can see on the left here, I have got the start of a spreadsheet set up for monsters' names, CR, their AC, hit points, their number of attacks per round, their damage, their attack bonus, all that kind of stuff. And then over on the right, we've got D&D Beyond with the hunt for uni or the search for uni, the little adventure that they released alongside the revised 5e books that's got some monsters in it. I'm going to take some of them, going to take some of the monsters from the back of the PHB, and take some of the monsters that have been leaked out to the press, run their numbers through this spreadsheet, and see what jumps out. And see what jumps out in contrast to what we had in 2014. If I go ahead and close some of this, let me drag OBS down there so I can make sure that things are working as they should there. Let me minimize that window. Cool. Now I can actually interact with the stuff that you can see. So this is the table of CR and stats, the standard CR reference table that was available with the 2014 version of D&D. It's got the CR and the XP, the proficiency bonus, and then the defensive stats, so the AC, hit points, and then the attack bonus, damage per round, and the save DC for monsters. This is a really useful table if you're building a monster out on the fly, or as a starting point if you're building a monster from scratch, and then you do a whole bunch of other math to kind of tweak it. So we're going to take these new monsters, compare them to this, and see if there is a consistent difference, because if there is a consistent difference, then I can just build a new one of these tables and everything is fine. If there isn't a consistent difference, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. It'll require a little bit more finagling in the background, a little more math to figure all that stuff out and try and get it working so that I can make new monsters for revised 5th edition that will sit within that kind of expected balance of its CR much faster. Because anytime you make a monster, there is a chance that on paper it will appear fine, and in play it is all kind of like bonkers and has weird interactions that you don't quite anticipate. But the goal of like this task is to get as close to that expectation as possible, so that when you are playtesting them, you are really only catching like wild outliers, and it saves you a lot of playtest time. It also helps kind of learn and understand the intricacies of the new system and has a whole bunch of other side like game designy benefits. But let's just get started. And as we're doing this, it's going to be a lot of like data entry stuff, so we're going to have a lot of time for like random side tangents and things. And I have to be careful about tabbing because I'm concerned that OBS will freak out and black out the screen if I tab away from some of these screens. As a lot of this is just going to be like manually entering data in the first part of the stream, go ahead and let me know what you've been doing in your games this week. If you've had any interesting like events going on in your sessions over the last week, kind of anything like that, whilst I am doing some of this majazzing. So we're going to start with the blink dog because it's what we've got, and you'll get very quickly get a sense of what we're doing here. +5, and then it is 5 piercing damage, has no secondary damage, total damage per round is equals that plus that. That's fine because I'm clicking the wrong things. And then any save DCs, it has no save DCs, I don't think. No. And then we want a little notes section, and can teleport. And this is where I'll make a note of some of the things that don't necessarily fit in to the kind of strict like mechanical numbers element, like being able to teleport on a recharge. Like that's a hard thing to quantify in an XP sense, in a CR sense, but it's something that you want to know because it will impact what a creature can do and kind of where its CR will sit some of the time, not all of the time. Jonathan says, I've started creating my own setting and you've really inspired me. I'm so glad to hear that. That's amazing. Singa said, we've been working on building out a world from players units in OSE, which has been a new thing for me. I've not taken a lot of look at the OSE. I've looked at a bunch of different kind of old school stuff, but Old School Essentials isn't one that I've dived super into. It's on my list to check out because it came recommended in a Reddit thread for layout. There was a Reddit thread of what are some RPGs that have got really good layout and communicate their information really well, and OSE was one of them, so it's been on my list for a little while to check out. Bugbear Warrior. Does Bugbear Warrior really only have one attack? Grim. An arm strike or light hammer. I think 6 if it's grappled. So you want to grapple it until the grapple ends. Advantage against grapple. Fancy. So +4. And then class-based systems are somehow much harder. Breaking into my brain and trying to design a bard class for my custom system for weeks. Class-based systems are somehow much harder. Yeah, class-based, like there's class-based systems so much more complex than classless, and they have so much more going on for them, so many more moving parts. Been loving the rules light of the OSR, very nice for the creative brain. Yeah, the rules light element of it can be very nice. I do sometimes miss having some more of the mechanics, but depending on what group that you've got, that kind of rules light creativity first approach can be really nice. So 6 damage or 9 damage. I like probably, I mean, you're almost always going to go with a light hammer, even if they're not grappled. It's the same to hit. It's Sorry, the major has the grapple condition. The only reason you're going to unarmed strike is to grapple to make the light hammer bears. So we're going to say that it's, in terms of the way our methodology for this, I have seen interviews where the designers have referenced that the way that they've approached CR for the new monster manual is that they will always assume the monster will do the most damage that it possibly can. So I am also going to follow that same suit. So in the likes of the Bugbear Warrior, where it's got 2 attacks, one does 6 damage, one does 9 damage, it only makes 1 attack around, so it's going to get 9 as its primary damage. And we're just going to drag that down there. Can grapple for advantage. We'll just make a little note on that. That's not really something I'm too concerned about with because it requires setting up. I don't think that's going to be something that really impacts the CR. But there is already quite a difference. Like, there's not much of a difference between the AC of our 1/4 CR and our 1 CR. There's quite a bit of difference in HP, but there's very little difference, a little bit of a difference in the damage per round. So I'm interested to see whether that continues and how it plays out specifically for our low level stuff. So we are gonna, right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna copy from there because I don't want to have to type the name of all of these things every single time because that just seems like a chore. Right, so Bullywug Warrior. Again, lots of just single attacks. Number of offensive attacks is 1, and it's +4 to hit. The primary damage is going to be 6 + 2, so that's 8. That's quite high in comparison to our 1 point of reference being the Blink Dog so far. And then has movement shenanigans. So we'll make a note of that. Can leap. So a couple of these things so far have had additional movement shenanigans. I've been stalling out my own work so now I can get into the zone. Hell yeah, get into the work zone. Mage, cool. Mage is a higher level creature, so let's see how this plays out. Oh, don't give me formatting. I don't want that. Again, 15 AC, 81 hit points, and what's it doing? Attacks. It's 3 attacks per round. It's +6 to hit. Its primary damage is going to be Arcane Burst, which is 16. Damn. So 16 times 3 is 48. So it's going to be doing 48 primary damage in its turn. And then it can replace one of those with spellcasting. So we might actually want to spin this out a little bit. Insert 1 column to the left. Primary damage, secondary damage. Right, okay. Damage per 6 rounds. So I know in 2014 there was part of the formula involved taking the amount of damage that a monster does and averaging it over 6 rounds. And then, so let's take that and then we want equals that. Oh, my brain is not turned on enough for doing sums. This was a mistake. Right, equals, and we want the primary damage over 6 rounds divided by 6. Right? And then plus that. The goal here is to do that. 48 damage, yeah, that's fine. Cool. And then if it's going to do fireball, fireball is 8d6, right? Fireball, let's have a look at fireball. 8d6. Oh, so much maths. 3.5 times 8 is 28 damage. So instead of one of those, which would be 16, would be 28. So 12. Yeah, that's how we're going to do that difference, I think. No, it's not. I've already confused my brain. Let's keep it simple. Let's not try and average it out over the 6 rounds for now. Let's just keep it nice and simple, because otherwise my brain's going to turn to mush. We might have to average it out, but if I do have to average it out, I'll do that off stream, because that's fine. So instead we'll go, it can do fireball twice, so it's going to do a couple fireballs. So we'll do 16 times 2 and assume that it's going to do like 32-ish. Or 28. Screw it. Its damage output is going to be like something like that. It can counterspell, it can shield. The shield is a big thing. So it's twice a day shield. The shield is 1 round, I believe. Yeah, it's 1 round. So if we're assuming that they're going to last for 3 rounds, then 2 of the 3 rounds that they're going to live for, this mage is going to have a functional AC of 20, which makes a much bigger deal. So that is something that we might have to consider for 2 rounds. Let's have a look at this, because this is what primary damage per round, secondary damage per round, averages it out, average over round. Yeah, that's probably a better way to do it, but I don't want to rebuild. I don't want to express it as six whole rounds worth of stuff. That feels like too much. We'll stay with it. It's fine. Right, Sprite. Right. Which is going to be a CR 1/4. It is 15 AC, 10 hit points, number of attacks is going to be 1. Its attack bonus is 6, which seems high. And it does 6 primary damage. And then what else can it do? It can do ranged attack, heat sight, so its DC is 10. That is good to know. What's the DC for the dude, the mage? 14. And invisibility. Invisibility is not going to change the CR, I don't think. Warg is the next one. Which is 1/2 CR. So the main goal of this first step is to try and see whether like patterns emerge and whether anything jumps out as being super similar or super different to the kind of standard table that existed in 2014. Because if it's similar, awesome, don't need to worry. Can just use that table and ignore the kind of additional maths that needs to happen. If it's super different, then has to be done with a whole bunch. Not total damage, is it instead do the secondary, not as well as secondary damage, alternative damage instead. Yeah, it's not exactly like that. I'm being lazy and I don't want to do the maths, but I really should. Yeah, we'll do it. Fine, we'll do it. Instead, if it was doing that, the 16, it would be 12 instead of 28. If it's replacing one of its 16-point damage with a 28-point damage, we'll turn it into... No, but that's not what it would do, because it only does that twice. Oh, it's really going to make me do 6 rounds worth of this, isn't it? Right. I'll figure this out. Might as well do this now, because it'll make my life easier going forward. Woosah. Right, their primary damage is Arcane Burst. Secondary damage is going to come from something like Fireball. It's really going to just... Yeah. Mother Tracker. Okay, that's fine. We're going to go... We're going to try and do this so that it's slightly less. Melting for my brain. And do it as 6 columns of primary damage, 6 columns of secondary damage, and then 1 formula column. And then hopefully that. And then make them nice and small and tightly packed. And then the mage would be 16, 16, 16, 16, 0, 0, and then it'd be 0, 0, 0, 0, 28, 28. And then it would be an equal sum. All of that. And then it would be that divided by 6, right? Yeah, there we go. Finally, total damage per round. That makes things a little bit more complicated for the input side of things, but not significantly so, because I can just drag in and it is fine. Everything is fine. I don't have to cry, even though I want to. There we go. So this pepper is gonna do. No, that's not what we want to do. It's also not going to do a bunch of secondary damage. It's only going to do primary damage. All seems so very complicated. Yeah, it's not super complicated. It's math that I don't want to do. I've got a headache. I don't want to do that level of math. But hopefully that's the only time we need to do that math, and I can just ignore it for the rest of the time. So because some monsters can do a normal attack like the mage is the perfect example, which is, it's good that it has come up so early. The mage can arcane burst every single round, but then they can also fireball, which does a different amount of damage, but they can't do it every round. So it changes their average damage output. And then that means that when you're looking at the table of the offensive damage per round, it might have a pretty significant impact. So in the case of the mage, if you don't account for the fireball, you'd assume that they would do the 48 damage per round. If you do account for the fireball, then they are doing on average 60 damage per round, and that might shunt them into a different bracket. It doesn't happen super often, and most of the time you can kind of get a feel for it, especially when you're the one running it and you know your players, a lot of the time you can look at a monster's damage and you can vibe it out. But when the whole point of this exercise is for me to be able to like design monsters that fit within the kind of bounds of semi-balanced on first pass. It makes more sense to just do the work in the first place and do the maths. It's just, I don't wanna. Yeah, I still have the last L stream at VOD in my watch later for whenever I get the mood to work on my settings races. Yeah, it's one of the benefits of doing these streams is they're ideal body doubling things. They're ideal to like throw on in the background while you're getting stuff down, or you want some inspiration to be gleaned. I know that's how I consume a lot of like stream based content, is I throw it on in the background while I'm doing something else, and then occasionally I'll like zone back in when something stands out to me and I'm like, oh, that's actually a super good idea, and then I kind of start paying attention again. If the horse was moved 20 feet in the straight immediately before the hit, the target takes an extra 5 bludgeoning damage, and if it is huge or smaller, has the prone condition. So we're going to assume that it is going to move 20 feet in a straight line, let's say twice in a combat. So twice it'll do secondary damage. So that's the benefit of doing this maths right up front, is that we can change our total damage per round. And then we probably, oh, wait, what? Oh, convert to table. I was really confused by that then. We do probably want to make another column that will take our total damage per round, multiply it by our number of attacks, and give us our round damage. I'll do that at the end. Bullywug Bog Sage. What an awful name. That is going to be a CR4 creature. I like a nice spread of options. And that's going to be 52 hit points. Its number of offensive attacks is going to be 2 per round. Its attack bonus is 5. And its Putrid Staff does 17 points of damage. So its primary damaging is going to be these. And then Vitriolic Sphere. I wish that it still had the hover that would show me. So Vitriolic Sphere makes a dexterity saving throw, takes 10d4 acid and another 5d4 acid. That's an awkward one. So 10 times 2.5 is 25. 5 times 2.5 is 12.5 plus 25 is 37.5. It takes and another at the end of its next turn. Oh, successful save. Yeah, so I've immediately forgotten what number I came up with then. 2.5 times 5 plus 25, right? It's 37.5. So it's going to do that once. It's going to be 37.5 once, and that will replace one of its attacks. Cast one of the following spells. Yeah, that replaces one of its attacks. So change that to 0. Sienna says, I really want to get to a point that I can publish stuff from my homebrew world that I'm creating, so I should learn this stuff, but math is just the worst. Yeah, it's the benefit of the 2014 rules is that other people had done the math and put out calculators that you could use, and I don't have the coding knowledge to be able to take what I learned from this and math it out, but I will probably make this spreadsheet available so that people can take this information and do what they want with it at some point in the future when I'm done with it. I don't know how large of a sample size we're going to get from this, because I'm not 100% sure of how many monsters have been revealed so far and kind of what information I'm going to be able to get from it, because I've not done the work yet. But I plan on going through the 500 monsters in the monster manual, which is just going to be, it's not going to be fun work, and doing the same to see what the big difference is in kind of design philosophy between then and now in terms of the numbers approaches, because I want to get that idea of how to build the monsters from the numbers side of things so they get within that CR in a similar way to the official books for that starting point, just to make the playtest process easier, so that you can look at it and go, right, I know it should fall in this range, I'll choose a number in that range and then feel out where in that range it sits by vibes. So it can do 1 vitriolic sphere. Fog cloud and grease aren't damaging. Rate of sickness is 2d8 poison. Is it 1 creature? Shoot a greenish ray at creature within range. 2d8 poison. Yeah, 2d8 is not going to be enough, so we keep the higher damage in from the putrid staff, and then its spell save DC is 13, and then it can also leap. Can leap. And then that is all of the ones that are in Uni and the Hunt for the Lost, whatever the hell it's called. But we do want source books, Player's Handbook 24, creature stat blocks. We do want these because this will give us a nice selection of low-level creatures to get a sense of how they are working. So we're going to start here with Ape, which is a half CR, which is AC of 12, HP of 19, makes 2 attacks. Its attack bonus is 5, and then it is doing 5 damage, or it is doing 10 damage. That's strange. Right, we're going to assume that it's going to do like, it's probably going to do like 4 sets of this 5 damage and then 2 sets of the 10, averaging that out. I'm a programmer, so I can get a clear understanding of what needs to calculate. It probably wouldn't take long to make. What would you want in and out? I think that it will. I don't know 100% until I've gone through the whole process to understand what useful information there is to be gained from the process. But essentially, it would be remaking something like this from its a D&D Monsters Now CR calculator, which takes all of the underlying math. I think this is all HTML. Pretty sure I've got a copy of the HTML code. HTML, or is it Java? I've got a copy of the code that makes this up knocking around somewhere, because I've been very paranoid that this would just vanish from the internet. But this just takes all of the maths from the 2014 DMG monster building section and puts it into a user face, which is incredibly useful. And if there is something to be learned from going through this process and seeing whether there is a difference between 2014's version of building them and 2024's version of building a monster, then there might be something to build out there, but I won't know until I've gone through the process. For example, we've got several CR 1/4 at the moment, so let's have a look. Their typical AC is 13, so 13, 15, 15, so that is trending a little bit higher. But their typical HP in 2014 was 36 to 40, which is way higher than it is now. So I'm pretty sure that we're going to see that as a trend. Lower level creatures are going to have much fewer hit points. Their attack bonus in 2014 was 3, and now it is sort of 5-ish. So they're hitting a little bit harder. That is good, because even at level 1, monsters really should have been having sort of +5s to hit the AC of most creatures. And then their damage output, 4 to 5 damage. I'm pretty sure we're going to be more than that. 5, 8, and 6. So a little bit higher. And their save DC is 13. So the only one we've got there is 10. So the DC is pulled down a little bit. Fine with the DC being pulled down, especially for monsters that are sitting to be used against first level parties in that sense. So I think we're probably going to see that trend continue. I don't know how useful the tiny creatures are going to be, because they are like outliers, and a lot of them are specifically for kind of transformation-ish stuff. Like a bat is not, oh yeah, they're all CR0. Yeah, we're ignoring CR0 for the sake of my sanity. And we're progressing straight to black bear. So its CR is 8.5, and then 11, 19. Number of attacks per round is 2. The attack bonus is 4. And then it is 5 damage. And that is just straight 5 damage right across the board. Another thing that I do quite like about the new monsters is how a lot of their abilities have been condensed down into, for example, just rend attacks. Much more simple to run. Derailment. Have you made your evocative point of interest generator public? Really love to use it, or something similar if you have. I haven't made it public yet. It's been one of those things that I keep going, yes, I will make it public, and then keep forgetting to do it. So I have put it on my big planning sheet for 2025 that we did in the first stream of the year. I planned out like the whole year, so I have put it on that big list to make sure that I actually get around to making a version that can face publicly, and that there's no like copyrighted material or anything in there. So definitely at some point it will come out this year. I just don't remember what the date is or when that will be. But it's definitely coming this year, because people have been asking for it, and I've been promising it for so long that y'all deserve it, and I can only keep delaying for so long before you will find me with pitchforks. So it's definitely coming this year. Bonjour, Jess. How are we? Right, the ball. The ball's goal. While bloodied, the ball has advantage. So let's say the ball is going to be bloodied after like 2 turns. It's not really going to make a difference to its damage output, so it's just going to be 4 damage, right? If it's moved at least 20 feet straight towards the target immediately, it takes an extra 3 damage. So we'll start by just giving it 4s across the board, and then similarly we'll give 2 rounds of the 3, so it averages out at 5 damage a round. 1 attack plus 3 to hit. Cool. And then brown bear. Brown bear is CR1. This is going to be AC 11, HP is 22, number of offensive actions is 1 bite and 1 claw. That's weird. That's unlike a lot of the other new monsters to have it split out into bites and claws. So that attack bonus is going to be 5, and then we'll do all bites as primary, all claws as secondary. So bites are all going to be 7, and claws are all going to be 5. So averaging out of 12. Camel can be ignored. Cat can be ignored. Constrictor snake. Yeah, we'll keep a constrictor snake. Did the bear have a save DC? No, it didn't. A lot of things that knock you prone just knock you prone now, which is quite scary. So Constrictor Snake is CR1 4th, and that is going to be AC 13, HP is 13, 1 offensive attack, plus 4 attack bonus, and then 6 damage. Constrict, saving throw DC 12, 1 medium that it can see within 5 feet. Has a grappled condition, so let's just stick those on. So it can constrict instead of biting. It's a medium creature, it can see within 5 feet. On a fail, they take 7 damage and they have the grappled condition. So we're going to assume that it's going to try and do that twice. It'll take 7 damage for constriction, and its save DC is 12. And then crab is too low for us to be concerned with. Crocodile, though. Crocodile. We'll put crocodile in, and that's AC 12. HP is 13. Noticing there's not a lot of difference in the HP between CR 1/4 and CR half. They get 1 attack. It can hold its breath. That's not going to make a massive amount of difference. The attack bonus is 4. They do 6 damage, right? 6 damage, and if it's medium, it's grappled. And the skip DC is 12. So between 10 and 12 for these earlier levels in terms of DCs. That's another useful thing to know. Direwolf, CR1. Direwolf, CR1. Its AC is 14. I'm surprised at how low a lot of these AC are, especially when the damage output on a lot of these is still quite low. I think that the early levels are going to be much easier than they used to be, and we might see the kind of, I think we might have a new like TPK tipping point where we get a level where the monsters suddenly become much more powerful comparatively than where they have been, because by the descriptions and by the stat blocks that I've seen, higher level monsters all seem to be punching way harder than they used to. But from what I've seen so far, all of the sort of CR1 and lower creatures all seem to be weaker, or all seem quite weak anyway. Even if they're not necessarily weaker, they still seem quite weak in comparison to the player characters, which seem to have gotten more powerful, more abilities and stuff, even from right from the jump. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a new tipping point of, oh, all of the players are fine for the first couple of levels, and then there's this specific level where all of the monsters seem to come online, and we see like a weird, anomalous bump in TPKs at that level. So +5 to hit, 8 damage, and it has no secondaries. It does get pack tactics. Pack tactics did impact the CR in 2014. No idea if it will anymore. Draft horse, we don't need to worry about. The elephant. Elephant is high enough CR that we'll put it in. Elephant is CR4. Only 12 AC though. That is outrageously low. Makes 2 gore attacks. Its attack bonus is +8. +8 is high for a CR4 creature. That feels very high. It is strength 22 though, so that does kind of make sense. There's 15 piercing damage, so again we're going to do 15 damage for 4 of the rounds, and assume, well, all of the rounds, and assume that in 2 of the rounds, If it moves 20 feet straight towards the before the hit, they have the prone condition. Oh, so it doesn't do immediate damage. That's fine then. Trample, dex save, 16 within 5 feet that has the prone condition, so we'll assume 2 rounds for that. Fail that, they take 17 damage. And then the DC is 16, which feels high. Can trample. That's a chunky bit of damage. Feels, I say it feels high, but when we average it out, it's like almost exactly the same as the Bullywug Bog Sage, which is also CR4. So either we have like, either we've done, either we're exactly right and we're on the right track, or we're uniformly wrong, that both our CR4s are ending up like in the total damage per round sitting so close together. That's an encouraging sign, I think. Coop says as long as no elephant people, right? Exactly. No Loxodon in this house. This is not a Loxodon house. We do not suffer Loxodon. Giant badger, giant crab. We'll ignore most of those. Giant spider, I think, is a mainstay that can go in. Then the mage at CR6 is wrong then, as it's lower than the CR4s. Possibly, but the mage does have more utility in as much as options to cast spells. Yes, Goop, you can stay. There's no spoilers today. It's nothing to do with our campaign. Giant spider, CR1. What's the AC on a giant spider? 14, 26. 1 offensive attack, right? Yeah. And it's got the web, but attack bonus on that is a 5, and then it's 7s. So we'll start out by filling in the 7s, and then the web recharge is 5 or 6. Dexterity saving throw. 1 creature is restrained. The web is destroyed. So they probably would do that once, which would replace some of the damage, which would reduce the damage a little. Oh no, it's 5 plus 7. Helps if you read. So that makes it 12. So that takes it to 10 damage at CR1. That underperforms a little bit, but the web shooting might bring it up a little bit. The DC is 13 on that. Can shoot web to restrain. I am gonna... No, we don't want to click that. I am gonna have a look and go back to the mage, and we're gonna double check the mage, because you have made me somewhat paranoid now, Bob. Mage. That I've missed out some of its spicy abilities. Right, so mage, which is here, so 16 damage is its arcane burst, and it makes 3 of them. So that is why, because that 16 should be a 48, right? Because it's making 3. No, is it? No. These are 6 rounds. Its main source of damage. Yeah, its main source of damage would be 48, right? And then it wouldn't do it for 2. And instead of doing 48, it'd do 28 to a bunch of people. So it'd average out at 41. Now I'm definitely doubting myself. And then 17. Yeah, we've put the numbers in slightly wrong. Good catch, Bob. 17. So that should be 34 because it's 2 attacks there. And then instead of that, it casts Vitriolic Sphere on 1 round, which takes it up to 34. Two Putrid Staffs for 5 rounds. 4 goes the 2 Putrid Staffs in exchange for Vitriolic Sphere. Averages it out. Cool. And then back up to 8. 8 makes 2 attacks. It is 5, so that would be 10. 10. 10. 10. Or it does the ranged attack, which is just 10 damage. So that flattens it out again. Black Bear. 2 rend attacks, 10 damage total. The Brown Bear, 1 bite, 1 claw. So all of its bites in the primary were 7. All of its things, so it's 12 per round. That's right, I believe. So it's doing a little bit more than that. Yeah, that's fine. Then Elephant. Elephant. Which we've missed out the second E. Elephant. Elephant makes 2 gore attacks. So each gore attack is doing 15 damage. So it's doing 30 damage per gore. And then 2 rounds from the thing, it would get an extra 17, which would up it to 35. CR for Bullywug Sage. That keeps it consistent with Bullywug Sage within a couple points. The Mage is still a little bit higher than that at CR6. Cool. That feels like it's more consistent. Well spotted, Bob. And then Giant Spider. And we're back on track. Ignore goats, hawks, imps. I don't want to ignore imps because imps have got cool stuff going on. So they are CR1. They are AC 13, not 123. Definitely not 123. They have 1 offensive attack per round. Oliphants, Mr. Frodo. They have +5 to hit, and then they are going to do... Ow! They're going to do 13 damage per round. They can go invisibility, and they can shapeshift. I don't think that's going to give them anything. Do they get any kind of save DC? Not that I can see, but they do get advantage on saves against magic. That might come up. Because the general process here is going to be look to see what the kind of averages using CR1, using the imp. I think the imp's a good example for this. If the imp has lower HP and AC than we would come to expect from a CR1 creature, then we can assume that its CR is being affected by magic resistance. So the whole point of this exercise is to try and work out what does and doesn't affect the CR, because previously we got explicit instruction on what affected CR. We were told very clearly which abilities affected CR and in what ways, but now we don't. It's very much just in the DMG, you just get a really vague, just reskin a monster, add a couple abilities, it's not going to matter, do whatever you want, we're loosey-goosey, baby, which is useless to us. So at least by doing this, we can look at CR1 creatures, and we'd organize this table by CR1. If the imp had like way lower HP, just as an example, we might go, that's strange. It's got statistically lower HP than what we'd expect from CR1. Same with its AC. why is that? We look at our notes, see that it's got magic resistance, and go, oh, the fact that it has magic resistance is probably contributing to that. And then we look at the 2014 version and see what magic resistance does, because in magic resistance in 2014 it added a +2 to the effective AC. So it might be that we may still be able to use the 2014 calculator for a lot of the elements of it, and by doing this I might be able to figure out which features from the 2014 calculator to ignore when it comes to changing CR. Like, I know in the DMG it specifically says you can give a creature 1 or 2 resistances or immunities and not impact the CR, so I'll just never tick those boxes again. That's fine. But if magic resistance does impact the CR, then we can build monsters using this builder, and magic resistance can be one of the boxes we tick to get us closer to a good starting point for building our monsters. Let's go Lion, which is CR1, AC 12, 22 hit points, number of offensive actions per round is 2, its attack bonus is +5, it deals 7 slashing damage, so that's 14 per round, and then it has a roar. It can replace one of these attacks with the use of roar, so we will replace one of those attacks with the use of roar. DC 11 on that, and they get the frightened condition. I don't think that we'd roar more than once in a combat, in a typical combat, so we just replace one of the attacks. And then we double check CR1, it's doing 11.66 recurring damage per round, and we look at some of our other CR1s like our Imp. It's consistent with our Imp. We go up to our Brown Bear, it's pretty consistent with our Brown Bear. Up to our Bullywug Warrior. Bullywug Warrior is looking suspiciously low. So again, once we've gone through this whole process, I can look at some of like the suspiciously outliers. I'll figure out like a percentage that I want them to be out. I'll do some conditional formatting in Excel once it's all done so that it highlights them for me, and then I can go and manually look and see, right, okay, the Bullywug Warrior is a couple damage points lower than other CR1 creatures. Is there a reason for that? What's it got going on in its stats to make up for that? It's definitely not because its HP is higher, because I can immediately see that, oh no, it is. It will be because its HP is higher. I was looking at the Blink Dog, not the Bullywug Warrior. But the Bullywug Warrior's HP is 33 versus the Lion and the Imp, which are in the 20s. So that's probably why its HP has gone up, so its damage output has come down. And that may well be the way that it ends up working. You go up on one, down on the other. But I'm confident, mostly, that this will result in something useful by the end of it. I hope. Let's go Panther. Anything CR 1/4 that's not tiny and that sparks my interest, we'll try and cover. Anything lower than that, I think, is so low that I can't imagine ever wanting to create a monster, because my primary goal for doing this is to create my own monsters for publication. I'm not interested in making monsters at that low CR, to be perfectly honest. It's going to be very rare that I'm going to be inspired to make a monster that is that low CR, that isn't a reforged monster, taking an existing monster and rebuilding it using an existing monster as a base. So I'm just going to ignore such low peasantry. Panther makes 1 pounce attack and then uses Prowl. So that's going to be a +4 on the pounce attack, which is going to be 4 slashing damage, or it deals 7 slashing damage if it had advantage on the attack roll. Again, Jeremy Crawford and crew have said that when they're building monsters, they now assume that the monsters are always operating at their most optimal. So we are going to also make that assumption and assume that the Panther is always attacking with advantage. It moves half its speed without provoking opportunity attacks. At the end of the movement, it can take the hide action. So it can use 1 pounce and prowl. So there's no reason the Panther shouldn't always be attacking at advantage. In which case, it will always be doing 7 damage. We look at our 1/4 creatures, and that puts us a little bit high, but not so high as to be immediately concerning. It has no save DCs and prowl for advantage. We'll ignore the pony. We'll put the pseudo dragon in. Why not? Show the pseudo dragon some love. So our little pseudo dragon, and it's only because it's part dragon. That's the only reason it's getting put on this list. It makes 2 bite attacks, which does feel like an outlier at this CR. Its attack bonus is 4, and it does 4 piercing damage. So it uses 2 bite attacks. So that's 4 damage. So it's 2 attacks, so it'd be 8 damage. Gotta remember that. So that is quite a bit higher than some of our CR 1/4. And then its sting, which you can use instead. It's Constitution saving throw. 1 creature that it can see takes 5 damage and has the poison condition, or they're unconscious. So it's going to do that at least 1 time in a fight, which will be 5 damage. The save DC is 12. Can sting to potentially make unconscious. Pseudo Dragon seems like it hits surprisingly hard in the bracket in which it's in. Like, it's dealing a decent amount of damage for a 1/4 creature. It has the ability to poison and potentially make things unconscious. It gets multiple attacks. It has advantage on saving throws against magic. Didn't even notice that at first. So we want to make a note of that as well. Pseudo Dragon seems to me like the best CR 1/4 option. Then we get the Quasit, which is Quasit. That is CR1. It's 13, 25. Number of offensive attacks is only 1. It gets advantage on magic. It only does 5 damage though. It gets once a day scare, so it will use that once instead of its attacks. Given them the frightened condition, doesn't do any extra damage while it does that. It can change shape, it can go invisible. None of that is particularly damaging. Quasit does very little in terms of damage, but it does get advantage on saves against magic. Shape, shift, be invisible. So Quasit seems like the utility choice rather than the damage choice. Reef Shark, yeah, we'll go Reef Shark. We'll put Reef Shark in here. That's going to be a CR1 half, AC 12, 22 damage. It makes a single attack at +4 to hit and 7 piercing damage, which puts it pretty low down. Not as low as the crocodile. Why is the warg not doing any damage? We need to fix that. We'll go and fix it in a moment. Oh, we can tab. We can tab and do it. So it makes 1 attack, and that 1 attack is at a +5 to hit. That deals 7 damage. The next attack roll against the target for the warg's next turn has advantage. That's not bad. And back to the reef shark. Scorpion, skeleton. Skeleton is the last one that I want to do from this list, because I want to compare this skeleton to the skeleton that's been shown off to some of the media outlets. It's not CR13, is it? It's CR4. It's got 13 AC and 13 HP. It makes 1 attack, +5 to hit, and 6 piercing damage or 6 piercing damage. So we'll go 6 piercing damage. So 1/4. It is doing pretty average damage, I think. Anything else in here? No, we'll do Tiger. This is a CR1. 13, 22. Number of attacks is a pounce and a prowl, very similar to the Panther. So the pounce is going to be 6, 9. Again, assuming that it is always got advantage and it's always operating at the max damage that it can do, which would be 9. And then Panther, so it's doing a little bit more than the Panther, and it's got a bit more in terms of its defensive capabilities as well, which isn't too bad for the Tiger. Is there anything else in here? A wolf. Wolf is a classic. Can't not put wolf on the list. That's going to be 12 and 11. Number of offensive attacks is going to be 1. +4 to hit, 5 damage. And then it gets pack tactics, which is just the same as the direwolf. The direwolf is CR1, does just a little bit more damage, is twice as survivable, but doesn't have much else going on for it. I would expect the direwolf. Does the direwolf have something else going for it, or is it just like a big wolf? Because if it's just a big wolf, that is a little bit disappointing. Yeah, it is just a big wolf. Missing out on the opportunity to do interesting stuff there with the direwolf. And then zombie. Zombie is the last one of this batch. Zombie, which is CR4, and then AC of 8, 15, and then it's 1 offensive action. It's +3 to hit, which is abysmal, and then it does 4 damage, but it does have undead fortitude, which is going to make a big difference on its CR, I think. And then we want to jump over to, this is a post over on EN World, which is a compilation of the various monster manual stat blocks that have been shown off for the 2025 book so far. So we've got a bunch of different stat blocks here that I want to put into this list, and then take all of them, sort them by CR, see whether anything starts jumping out, and see how it compares to some of the options from 2014. So starting off with the adult green dragon. This is going to be really hard to see. Let me zoom, please. It's adult, right? Adult green dragon, which is CR22. It has an AC of 21, HP of 402. Its number of offensive attacks, it makes 3 rend attacks, and it can replace 1 of them with the use of spell casting. So it makes 3 offensive attacks. Its rend is +15, and that's 17, 27. So we're going to assume that it's going to do 2 rends per turn, which is going to be 27 times 2 is 54, so it's going to be 54 primary damage per turn, and then whatever we've got going on in the secondary damage. Modified memory polymorph cloud kill, level 8 version. No, cloud kill, and it can do that twice. Gross. Cloud Kill. 8th level version. Yes, that is what it said. An 8th level version. That is grotesque. So, so it is a 5d8, which is, and then 1d8 for each spell slot level above 5. So it's going to be 8d8, which is going to be 8 times 4.5, 36 points of damage on the Cloud Kill. And it can do that 2 turns. And then Dissonant Whispers, Detect Magic, Charm Monster. And it's got Poison Breath, which it can do recharge 5 or 6. So it'd do that once, at least once in a battle. So it'd be 77 damage instead of one of the things entirely. And then for the remaining 2, I think that it probably would just be Rends instead of spell casting. So it'd be an extra 27 in each of those. Right, so we got 6 rounds. One of them, it does no Rends because it's doing Poison Breath. And then secondary is doing 2 Cloud Kills. Poison Breath, and then the rest of the time it's doing Rends. Reactions: Corrosive Miasma, uses its legendary resistance, or is hit with the ranged attack. Constitution save 22 points. So it can do 14 damage as a reaction. And Rend Retaliation as reaction. It can take up to 3 reactions per round, but only 1 per turn. So it will do 27. We're going to assume it'll be Rend Retaliation because that's the highest one. So we want to add 27 times 3 of those. So that's another 81 damage on top of each of those, which is wretched. So 81, 77 plus 81 is 158. And then 27 plus 27, 27 times 3 times 4, 108. So the average damage per round output for the adult green dragon is 164 damage at 22, which does put it exactly in the CR22 band. I know it's only a sample size of 1, so nothing to start dancing about too quickly, but that is very encouraging. I am very encouraged by this. In terms of its AC is higher than it would be. Let's just do, let's make the adult dragon in the old one and see what the CR calculation comes out as, because that will give us a really good indication as to whether or not we're kind of hitting the mark with the old calculator. 64, 164, 164. It has 3 legendary resistances, right? Legendary resistances. It has 4 legendary resistances. That's freaking grotesque. What else? It has fly speed. It has some kind of horrific usage, right? Battle cry, advantage on initiative. It can breathe underwater. It's got rend. It's got spellcasting. It's got poison breath, charming presence, reactions. It's got, which would be legendary actions, which I don't think are counted here. So it is trending a little bit low on the old one, but we've not done its DCs. Its DC is 21. That will bump it up almost certainly. Oh, not quite. Okay. Oh, actual HP. That's why. Its actual HP is 402. There we go. Right. So 402. Making that in the old version, the CR would be 24. So if we take off legendary resistances and fly, takes us to 23, which is close. It's not a million miles away. 23, 22. Bob says that they released the Hydra or the Kraken yet. They might have released the Hydra. I feel like I've seen the Hydra's artwork at least. Let's have a scroll through and see whether we can see the Hydra. No, nothing for the Hydra here. I feel like I have seen the Hydra's artwork though. Nothing for the Kraken. But that's not miles away. Like 23, 22. I'm not massively disappointed in that. I think that if I made a creature that outputted 23 with these stats, I think it's probably close enough that it's not a huge problem. Let's have a look at what the difference between 22 and 23 is. It's quite a difference in hit points. So I don't know where that is coming from. It's got higher AC, but not wildly higher. It's got a much higher attack bonus, which is probably where the issue comes from. And then it's sitting in the range for the offensive output, and its save DC is a little high. But I think that if you were to make a CR22 creature using the 2014 rules, and you didn't adjust the CR based on, like, if you didn't add damage resistances and immunities and didn't tick any of these side parts and just dialed the CR in based purely on the numbers, like the defensive and offensive capabilities, I think there might be something to that. Further experimentation is required, given that this is such a tiny sample size. But I am I'm feeling hopeful about the future. So let's have a look at some more monsters. So this is the skeleton. This is the official skeleton. So this is going to be 13, 13 plus 5, 6, 6, 6, 6. Yeah, that's exactly the same as it was originally. Why are skeletons lawful? Because I assume because they have been raised through necromancy and serve a master, so they follow the law of their raised master. But yeah, I didn't even register to me that they were lawful. That would be my guess, is that the raising of a skeleton via necromancy means that they follow their necromantic master. They follow some kind of code which makes them lawful, as in the law, a law as defined by them or the person that's raised them, versus lawful as in societal laws. But it's a weird one. Have we got? Yeah, we do that. Minotaur skeleton is going to be a CR2. 12, 45. That's 25, not 45. Number of offensive attacks. Really, just one? That's disappointing. Don't like seeing just one attack at CR2. That feels far too small. Real small energy. Plus 6 to hit, and then it's 11 damage, so it's going to be 11 across the boards, isn't it? And then if it's seeing a lot of X amount of damage, but if the creature moved this much, they deal an additional amount of damage. And they also have prone. I quite like this rider of if the creature moves a certain amount as well, they deal additional damage, because that's going to subtly encourage a lot more movement on the GM side. It'll encourage a lot more attacks of opportunity from the players, but it will hopefully encourage a lot more dynamic fights as the GM is trying to maneuver these creatures to get them to use these abilities rather than just stand in a line and hitting each other Final Fantasy style. So again, we'll assume 2 rounds of this movement in which they do the goring. So they take the 9 damage, and then if they're not goring, they're going to slam because it's more efficient. That takes us to 15.33 damage. Flaming Skeletons, which are CR3. Their AC is 15. They've got 65 hit points. They have 2 attack. Flaming Scepter or Hurl Flame in any combination. What are you doing? I want to zoom in there, and then I want to be on here. So, Skeleton makes 2 attacks using Flame Scepter or Hurl Flame in any combination. It's both +5s. Both deal either 8 or 7 damage. So we're going to assume Flame Scepter and do 8 damage across the board, but it's +5s there and then 8 damage across the board, which would actually be 16 because it's 2 attacks, and then they get a death burst, so 1 round they will die and they will do 14 damage, and then that will take them up to 18 average damage. Cool. That's that one, and then Kua Toa, which is CR 1/4. Kua, not Jua Toa, Kua Toa, which is a 1/4 creature. AC 13, HP is 18. It makes 1 attack, right? Yeah, 1 attack. It's +3 to hit, and it is 5 damage. Sticky net DC 10, so we want to get a DC 10 in there, and then targets 1 creature it can see, restrained until it's destroyed. A creature can use an action. Probably use that once instead of an attack. I wouldn't want to use it more than that. Has grapple condition at the end of its turn. It can end the condition. That is nice. If a creature misses the creature with a melee weapon, strength saving, so target's weapon is used to make the attack become stuck to the Kuotoa's shield. Won't let it go. Target has grappled. So a bunch of grappling stuff, which is quite nice. We need to make a note that it's got a bunch of grapple shenanigans, because if it is a statistical outlier, that might explain why. And then we can try and work out whether there's a CR value associated with that. Gargoyles. Gargoyles. Hello, gargoyles. It's going to be CR2. That is AC 15, 67. Hit point Arunis. It makes 2 claw attacks. They are +4 to hit, and they deal 7 points of damage. So that is 14 points of damage in their primary attack per turn. It can fly, doesn't provoke AoE. And then Gelatinous Cube. Side note, very excited that Gelatinous Cube isn't going to be under O for oozes anymore. That's going to make it so much easier to reference this goddamn book. I'm also very excited for having locations for monsters back in within their flavor text, their habitat, and apparently we're getting a lot more of these tables of like trinkets and like stuff going on with them, and just a lot more tables in general, which I'm really excited about. So this is going to be CR2. Its AC is 6, which is big woof. Ooze Cube. It makes 1 attack with its pseudopod. Plus 4 for 12 damage. If I can grab the thingamabob. And then Ooze Cube fills out the space. Total cover, other action, 5 feet, DC 12. The puller takes 10 damage. So we're going to assume that someone's going to be inside the cube at least once for 10 damage. And then even in plain sight, after DC 15, there's another DC 12 there, another DC 12 there. So we're going to assume DC 12 as the average. And then look at Vampire Familiars. Which is CR3 for AC 15, 65 hit points. Number of attacks is 2 Umbral Daggers, which are +5s to hit. And then they are 5 plus 7, so 12 points of damage. So it's 24 per round. If target is reduced to 0 hit points by this attack, they become stable, but poisoned. While they're poisoned, they are paralyzed. And then they can dash and disengage for free. Nimble escape. And then Ancient Gold Dragon. This is so small, and I hate all of the notes upon it. Ancient Gold Dragon. Ancient Gold Dragon. This will be another one that I want to compare to 2014's version. Forgot what years were. 22 AC, 546 hit points. Number of offensive attacks is going to be 3 rend attacks. It can replace 1 attack with the use of A, spellcasting to cast Guiding Bolt at level 4, or B, Weakening Breath. Don't know how I feel about that. But it is a 17 to hit, and that is going to be 19 plus 9, 28 damage. So we're going to make a note of that off in the calculator to start with, and then we're going to go Fire Breath. Can replace 1 of the attacks with Fire Breath. So it's always going to make 2 of these attacks. So it's always going to do 56 damage primary. And then start off, it's going to do a Fire Breath, which will be 71 damage. Then it'll do Spellcasting, which is Guiding Bolt, which is upcast to a certain level. Level 4 Guiding Bolt. Let's have a look and see what that would be. 4d6 damage increases by 1d6 for every spell slot above level 1. So 5, 6, 7d6. 7 times 3.5. It's going to be 24 points of damage for a Guiding Bolt on 1 turn. And then Guiding Bolt's shape change. Flame Strike at level 6. But does that replace... It can replace 1 attack with a use of spellcasting to cast that Guiding Bolt or Weakening Breath. So if it's going to Flame Strike, it can also attack. So let's have a look at Flame Strike and see whether Flame Strike is worth doing. Flame Strike for this one is level 6. So that would be 6d6 and 12d6 total damage. So it's 12 times 3.5 is 42. So that probably is worth it for the AOE. So we'll get rid of one of the uses of its rends. And then that leaves it with 3 more. So a weakening breath. Target's disadvantage. So we'd use a weakening breath and then two more just straight rends, which will be 28 damage. Which isn't a lot of damage. Not gonna lie. So on the first round, it is gonna do fire breath, right, instead of that one. So I want to move that to there, so make sure that I understand what's happening. So first round, it's fire breath in instead of anything. Then the next round, it's doing 24, which is guiding bolt. Next round, it's doing flame strike. Round after that, no, not doing flame strike, is it? It's doing flame strike on turn 4. 24 is guiding bolt. 42. What's the 42? That was flame strike, which would be in place of round 3's damage. So on round 1, it uses fire breath, which does 71 damage to all the creatures in the region. Round 2, it would use its rend, attack, and guiding bolt. Round 3, it would use flame strike. Round 4, it would use 1, 2. Round 3, it would use flame strike. Round 4, it would use round 4 it would use just all rends, right? No, round 4 it's using its weakening breath. There we go. And then round 5 and 6 it's using rends. Ancient Gold Dragon's damage output is not as spicy. Not as spicy at all. Let me double check that I've done that math right, because that feels incredibly low. Oh, I've not done the legendary actions, that's why. So it can banish, it can do Guiding Bolt. The Guiding Bolt was 24 damage, and it can do 3 of those per round. And it uses, so 3 of those per round. 24 times 3 is 72. 72 plus 71. 143. And then 24, we'd replace that with 28, because if we can do it as a legendary action, there's no need to do it as a regular action, which would replace that as flat 100s. And 24. Welcome in, Hector. You're currently finding me in the depths of a whole heap of math. 24 times 3, wasn't it? Yeah, 72. So it'd be 72 on there. And then it's that 42 one. 42. 114. Welcome, William. Okay, so that the Gold Dragon's damage output isn't as bad as it first appeared. I forgot to put its legendary actions on. Still lower than the Green Dragon, and I still think that it's going to end up trending low when we compare it to 2014's version. But let's try this out. So 22 hit points, 546 hit points, 22 AC, it's plus 17 to hit, and 142 damage per round. Let's see what we come out with. My hopefully I'm unmuted now. My little mute icon didn't tell me I was muted. I pressed it when I was coughing, but it didn't say I was muted, so I thought I hadn't actually pressed it properly. My bad. Let me just triple check that I can hear myself. Yeah, I can. It's fine. We're all good. We are going through and trying to see how the new monsters compare to the old ones in terms of their stats, with a view of trying to get a better idea of how to build monsters for revised 5e. So with 2014, you could take all of the math that was provided in the DMG, run it through a calculator like the one on screen, and it would output the CR based on the math provided in the book. In revised 5th edition, you don't get that math. They just say, take an existing monster and reflavor it. It's all cool, baby. I hate it. And I'm trying to see whether there is meaningful numeric differences. And so far, at the higher levels, it seems like you could just build a monster using the AC, hit points, attack bonus, and damage output, and just ignore the creature traits and abilities and the way in which they affect the monster. And that might get you close. I'll have to test once the actual monster manual comes out across the spectrum of CR. But so far, I've got a good feeling that we're going to be able to continue to use the 2014 guidelines to a degree, to enough of a degree as to be a starting point. The Haunting Revenant is a CR10 creature. That'll give us a good place to test again, kind of middle of the pack for this. So we'll go Haunting Revenant, which is CR10, has an AC of 2,203 hit points. It has 2 offensive attacks that are made at a +9 to hit, and they are 27 bludgeoning damage. So 27 times 2 is 54 damage. So it's doing 54 damage per turn with its primary offensive ability. And then what's Invitation? DC 17. And the target is teleported inside the Revenant space and swallowed. A swallow creature has total cover, yada yada yada. While the Revenant has hit points, the swallow creature can leave the Revenant space only by using magic that enables planar travel, such as plane shift. That's nice. They don't take any damage, but you can gobble them up. It's fine. You can take them out of the fight. Cool. If the Revenant dies, it revives 24 hours later unless the spell Good or Evil is cast on its remains. I like that. If it revives, it animates another gargantuan object or structure elsewhere on the same plane of existence. It now looks different, but uses the same stat block and returns all of its hit points. I like that again. Haunted Revenant is pretty cool. I like that quite a lot. But in terms of its abilities, let's have a look at the old table here. We are going CR10, so AC would typically have been 17. AC is not one that we really need to worry about. The AC fluctuates wildly, but 203 hit points does put us close enough to our 206 to 220 range from 2014. Attack bonus 7 2014, 9 currently in 2024, so a little bit higher, but our damage output is a little bit lower and our saves are a little bit higher. So let's run it through the Frinkinator and see what we come out with, and see whether or not we end up with a CR10 creature if we ignore all the creature traits, because I think that might be the clutch element of this. That's my sneaking suspicion, that they've just ignored all of the way that the math interacts with this. Yeah, that's exactly what they've done. I'm calling it now. The way that they're building monsters now is exactly the same process as they used in 2014. It's just creature traits and abilities don't impact the CR. So if you are you might end up 1 or 2 CR. You might end up a CR either side of the CR that you get outputted, because we've had that happen a couple times. But I'm getting more and more confident that if you run the numbers from 2014, ignore the modifiers for creature traits and abilities, you will get close enough. Closer than anything that they're officially gonna put out anyway. Dev Walking says there's going to be a lot of TPKs for party that rely on it. This is what I said this right at the start of the stream, that I think there's going to be a tipping point level, because it feels like certainly under CR1 they seem to have dropped the HP of a lot of monsters, but at higher levels they seem to have increased the stats of a lot of monsters. So at some point along that spectrum there is a tipping point, and I think we're going to see like an unusual bump in TPKs at one specific level point over the next year, where all of the monsters' abilities kind of turn on and monsters suddenly get disproportionately more powerful than they have been at the CRs before that. And rather than currently where you've got a case of levels 1 to 3 being really dangerous for the players, levels 1 to 3 are going to be much more stable now, and at some higher level, I don't know what it is yet because I don't have enough of the data, but at some higher level all these monster abilities are going to kick on and players are going to be like, bah, and you're going to have a lot of unexpected TPKs clustered around this CR. And I think it will probably be a couple of years before we start hearing people talk about it, because I think that it's more likely than not that someone will either assume that the module they're playing is to blame for it, or that they built that one encounter wrong versus it being a level, like abilities coming online in a level thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if we look at the big picture within a couple of years, we see that spike at a certain level of TPKs over one of the levels. But in terms of building monsters and getting within the CR bounds, I'm growing more confident that if you use the 2014 rules and just not the creature traits and ability modifiers, that you will end up with CRs similar to what you have in 2024, which means if you want to build monsters that are balanced within line with the monsters that are within 2024, that is a way to do it, to get a quick and dirty starting point that you can then look at and use your like DM experience, use your designer brain to look at and go, right, okay, I've gotten the starting point of this, now I can go from there and figure it out. Which is the whole purpose of this evening for me, to get even just a starting point for being able to make publishable monsters, because a starting point is better than nothing. So let's do it again with the Empyrean is just a CR1. Ugh. We want something a little higher than that, but we've got nothing. Let's try. The Mage is a spellcaster, and spellcasters are tricky when it comes to that. Let's try the Elephant and see what happens when we put the Elephant in. So it's CR4, it's got 12 AC and 76 hit points. +8 on the attack bonus. And it's dealing 35 damage per round. 35. Let's see whether we output this as 4. I don't think we're going to. CR16. See, we end up slightly low. So it's not... This isn't perfect. But it gets us close. It gets us under rather than over, which I'm not too bothered about. And if once I have the monster manual in hand and I have the 500 monsters, the more monsters I have, the more I can figure out what the actual averages for the published ones are. Can go through it, do that whole process. Then I can figure out, okay, if the creature is CR 0 to 4 and it outputs me a number, I know that I need to actually make it a little bit tougher. If it's 8 to 12 and it outputs me a number, I know I need to weaken it a little and just get into a point where I feel like I can pull some numbers together as a starting point will really be beneficial. Though I think we may need to look at the equivalent character builds. Obviously not power build, but it gives a perspective on what players can do against the same CRs. Absolutely. It's characters. Characters have gotten more powerful in 2014, so I expect the monsters to get more powerful by and large. It seems like the lower level monsters have gotten a little bit weaker to account for the like low level character deaths that have been happening, but that isn't necessarily a problem. Add in the additional 17 as well if they haven't. I put in the damage, the average damage per round, so that 35. But I could do the 30 because it is split out like that. 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, and then two 17s, which is going to come out to the same average damage anyway, isn't it? Yeah, that. Oh no, wait. Yeah, still comes out to the same. Harvesting all the data by hand, though, that's dedication. I don't know whether I'll harvest it all by hand when it comes to the full 500 monsters coming out. I don't know how I would automate it, but if I can figure out how to automate it, that would be incredible. And then Agile Monk, welcome in. Yeah, YouTube's notifications just really do suck ass. They really do suck. It's super common for them to just not put out notifications. It's a constant source of frustration for me. But that's like 36 monsters this evening. That's pretty much all of the meaningful monsters that they've released, and we'll give a reasonable idea if we go ahead and nope. Come on now, Google. Don't be a dick. How do we sort? Sort A to Z? Is that what I want? Nope, that's definitely not what I want because I have headers. Oh, I'm so not used to using Google Sheets. I'm so much more used to using Excel. Let's try and not select the headery bits and then sort this. Where is the sort button gone? It's vanished. Can I not sort without it? Apparently not. I will pull it into Excel and sort it. Is the easiest thing to do. Because that's driving me mad. What do I want? Revised 5e builder. And then sort and filter, custom sort by monster name A to Z. That's not actually what I want to do though, is it? I want to sort by CR. CR smallest to largest. That'll do the job. Save, close, and then see whether that automatically updates it. Refresh. Curses. Didn't automatically update it. Son of a... Oh, there it did. I'm sorry, Google. I shouldn't have spoken ill of you. There we go. Highlight the first row and create a filter. Yeah, just easy. It was easier for me to just open it in Excel, like out of the view of OBS, and sort it in that, and then let it update on the cloud version. Because I'm only using Sheets, so I can split screen it and have OBS like treat this whole thing nicely. So now we can have a look and see what. See, show me averages, please. So average AC for a CR1 creature, based on our very small sample size, again, caveating this with doing it based on the sample size that we have available to us, which is incredibly small in comparison to the 500 plus that we have. That's why I want to wait for the 500 new monsters to really get a sense of this, because then hopefully there'll be enough monsters in each category to really be able to just go and use their average numbers as a starting point. But average AC 13 at CR1, an average HP of 24. So let's have a look at how that compares to this. So CR1 average HP was 71 to 85. So see, much lower HP, but the AC average is the same. The attack bonus I can see has gone well up. The attack bonus is basically 5 where it used to be 3. So they're hitting more often, which is good because they needed to. It's one of my biggest problems with monsters in 5th edition is their attack bonuses aren't high enough a lot of the time. Once players start picking up like plate armors and a lot of the higher level defensive magics, it becomes really hard to hit them. So they needed a bump in their to hit bonus, even if they don't get a bump in their damage output. So CR1 used to do 9 to 14 damage per round, and now does 9 damage, so lower end of that based on this sample size, which is predominantly beasts, so predominantly the kind of crappier versions of the monsters that you would find. But that is in line with what you would have expected from 2014. So really it seems like HP is the big change factor here. So CR2, we've got an incredibly small sample size, which is really skewed by the gelatinous cube. So I don't think the AC is really going to be a lot to draw from for CR2. But the HP, again, much lower. And then their attack bonus, weirdly, lower than CR1. Bugbear Warrior HP is very high with lower damage, but Direwolf lower HP with low damage output. Yeah, it's the I don't think that I genuinely don't believe WotC have a mathematical system for working this out, and I don't necessarily think that they have to have one, but it is a game of numbers, and I think that if you start from a point of numbers, it's probably a good thing. But I genuinely don't think that they have like a robust number system behind the screen. But we do have quite a lot of 1/4 ones. So let's have a look at what we've got AC wise here. 12. Excuse me. So a little bit lower AC than 2014. And HP 13. Again, much lower. So this at the lower end of the CR, I think that we're going to see a lot lower HP. And I actually think we might see lower HP in general. 24, 546. Yeah, that's still just in line. Monk, thank you very much. Much appreciated. And then our damage outputs for CR4, let's have a look. It's 5 damage per round, which is in line with 2014. Yes, HP seems to be where we are, like where it's fluctuating the most. Our damage output for CR24 is a little low compared to what it was in 2014. 22 is a little bit low. CR6, CR10, 10. A touch low. CR6. Again, a touch low. Damage is a touch low as well. HP is a touch low, damage is a touch low, but attack bonus seems to be a little bit higher, and AC seems to be a little bit higher. I don't have enough data on saves, I don't think, to make a judgment on that, except for maybe CR for 1/4, which saves are lower as well. Yeah, I don't know that we've got enough data points to like concretely say anything, but I've got a sneaking suspicion that certainly once you get to tier 3 and 4 play, that using the 2014 calculators without the traits and abilities modifiers is going to get you close enough. Certainly at tier 3 and 4 play, the difference of a CR or 2 isn't huge because the XP banding is so large, and especially with the way that they now work out XP is much more loosey-goosey than it was before. But I'm interested to see where it goes from here. Very interested to see where it goes from here, because it's gonna be strange getting used to a lot of the new monsters. I'm excited to see a lot of the new monster abilities, because a lot of the monsters have had quite radical changes to their monster abilities from what I've heard in a lot of the design interviews and things like that, and what we've seen in a lot of the previews. A lot of the not low level monsters have had quite a few bumps and changes, which I'm quite excited about. So I am really looking forward to the monster manual, and the week that it drops, that week it should drop the same day as we do the stream that week, so I should get D&D Beyond access to it the same day. So that stream day, what I intend to do is go through and compare like a suite of monsters from 2014 to their 2024 counterpart. Some classics, like some of the goblins, some skeletons, some zombies, some vampires, a couple of the dragons, and see how they've changed in the last decade of this sort of semi-edition. Next week's stream, though, I think, let me double check my schedule. This is the benefit of doing all of that work a couple of weeks ago. I actually have a schedule now, so I can look at it and tell you what we're doing next week. Next week, we're going to do a special stream, which is going to be a shop talk stream. This is something that I alluded to a couple of weeks ago. So next week is going to be me talking about like industry stuff. So I've got a couple of talking points that I've noted down of things that have happened within sort of the TTRPG industry and the sort of YouTube TTRPG industry that I have thoughts and opinions on. So we're going to have like a shop talk stream where I talk at like a meta level about the industry and can ask questions, and we can go into kind of some of the behind the scenes stuff. I'm going to hang around for like 5 more minutes, so if anyone's got any questions or anything, throw it in the comments while I die. Holy crap. Oh, that hurt. I'm going to do my usual dancing for my dinner and post out all of my links. As I said, if you've got any questions about monster design, world building, the stream this evening, or any ideas for the shop talk stream next week, post them in the chat below while I go ahead and figure out all of the buttons that I need to press. Let's start with Discord. Discord's always a good place to start. So if you aren't already, come and join us over on our Discord server. We have a whole bunch of areas in the server for you to hang out with other TTRPG players and GMs. We've got player and GM focused areas. We've got areas for you to share maps and all sorts of stuff there. There's also an area where I share like in progress stuff about my world building, and there's also an area where you can get access to if you are a channel member. I still don't have a channel member button. I really should have a channel member button, but somewhere beneath this, there's a big old join button. So if you're interested in getting even more content from the channel and you want to get exclusive members only videos that dive into my homebrew world, I just put one out yesterday going over a tour of my homebrew world's cosmos. So if I jump into Legend Keeper and make some slight adjustments here, phew, look at that. It's almost like I'm prepared. So this Planes of Existence map, I put out a video yesterday where I did a tour of this map, where I went through all of my Planes of Existence, gave kind of a high level overview of what's going on in each of them, what their kind of big deal is, and walked the YouTube members through the high level ideas behind that. And then in some future videos, we're going to talk about the pantheon of my homebrew setting. We're going to dive into the world of Ishtar itself and get into a lot of nitty gritty world building content. And there's a whole bunch of other exclusive members videos there, and members get early access to videos. So members can currently watch the first video of February's schedule right now, and it's already been out for like a week. And February's second video is going to go out sometime this week. I just need to finalize the sponsor for it, edit that in, and then that'll be going out. So if you're interested in that and want to help support the channel, members, the YouTube members is the best way. Also have Patreon, where you can pick up my SIDEQUEST magazine and get a whole bunch of new 5th edition compatible content every month, and then every quarter we bundle it together into a shiny new magazine. We switched to a quarterly release for that, which is all exciting, bigger, longer, uncut. I love the South Park references. Or if you want to pick up a whole bunch of free options for digital content, you can find that over on my Drive-Thru RPG stuff. My name is Menanto. I hope that you have enjoyed this evening. I hope that you've been able to get some work done, that I've been a suitable body double for you. I'll catch you at the same bat time, same bat channel next week. And until then, happy gaming.